We are back. Part two with Steve Edwards right here on Touching Greatness. And we're going to be talking mostly baseball here. So let's start with this.
Hi, everybody. This is Vin Scully, and here's Ted Sobel.
Oh,
Wow.
some of that got cut off there, but whatever, Steve.
Wow. Wow. Come
That
on.
was for you. That's for your Brooklyn side and your LA side.
Wow. What I bet there are times you're just at home and you're sitting there.
No. But I
No,
got, you want to hear one more that I have queued up from
sure.
Vinny?
Yeah.
Okay, here's one from Vinny.
Say, baseball fans, while you're enjoying the game tonight, make sure you keep your radio set to Ted Sobel.
That's not AI either. We were working together for 5 years at KFWB. I did the Dodger postgame show occasionally, and so he worked those in for different situations. And you know how that works. You sit down,
Yeah.
you do it 1 minute, you get them all out of the way, and you never have to say the idiot's name again.
Well, yeah. Vin is just above it all. What can I tell
you? Exactly. Anyway, let's talk World Series now, and I want to hear about how this kid from New York became a baseball fan and why the Dodgers and the Yankees and a little bit of the Giants. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, I grew up in the Bronx, so therefore I was a Yankee fan. I was geographically destined to be a Yankee fan.
Yes.
My mother was from Brooklyn. She was kind of a Dodger fan. My father was from Manhattan, but he was a Yankee fan. And I grew up in an era where baseball was the national pastime and was for another 10 or 15 years after. So in New York, I had Mickey, Yogi, and Whitey. I had that Yankee team, Elston Howard, Hank Bauer. I had that team was my childhood, and I loved them, and they were everything to me. However, there was this other team, this Brooklyn Dodger team, and I kind of loved them too, because how could you not love a team with Jackie and Pee Wee and Campy and the Duke and Jackie?
They were dim bums, right? You had to love them.
And from my distant childhood, they were playing each other in the World Series. It seems like every year.
Yes.
And Jackie Robinson was kind of a hero in my home. And when I was a Cub Scout, Jackie came to speak to my Cub Scouts, and I got to drive in the car, ride in the car, because my father drove him home to Queens, to St. Albans in Queens. I'd like to give you a play-by-play of that. I don't remember any of the conversation. I just remember that we did. So I love the Dodgers. So for me, it was simple. Yankees above everybody, the Dodgers above everybody but the Yankees, and the Giants above everybody but the Dodgers and the Yankees, because the Giants had this guy, Willie Mays. So on some level, I was a fan of all of them. Yankees first. But then over the time, as I moved around the country, and George Steinbrenner took over the Yankees, there was something about Steinbrenner I just didn't like. And I always liked the Dodgers, and it was Sandy Koufax. And I lived in a National League city, Chicago. So I decided when the Dodgers came to town, the White Sox were there, but it was a National League city.
Yep.
I lived in Houston, the Astros. I did, by the way, I should tell you this. I think this is a career highlight. I did 2 innings of play-by-play with Harry Carey.
Awesome.
When he was still with the White Sox, before he got to the Cubs. I did 1 inning, and I say this humbly. He was so impressed with how I did the play-by-play, he said, stick around for another inning, do another inning. And he said, where have you done play-by-play? How do you? I said, I did it in my bedroom every day for 15 years.
That's great. So do you still have the tape?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, Steve.
I don't even have a photograph. I wasn't much of a collector.
No, but the tape, I mean, that's something,
I don't. You know what I do remember?
What?
I remember Oscar Gamble came up to hit. And Gamble had the big fro with the hat. You remember? Yeah. And he hit a line drive to right center field. I said, he's rounding first and he's gambling for second. And Harry was so impressed with that ad lib.
That's great. I wonder how many times he stole it after that.
He didn't have to steal my stuff, believe me.
Okay, so what do you remember about your childhood? When did you leave New York now?
I left New York in essence in the 60s.
Okay, so you were there for the 55. Finally, the Dodgers won it, right?
I was there. I mean, I was
You were
there.
at the game?
I was there.
Okay, now okay, you got to tell us. What do you remember?
I remember, I was a kid, and I remember being heartbroken. I remember Mickey Mantle pinch hitting because he had been injured and hitting a fly ball that was like 10,000 feet up and 290 feet long. Not enough, even for the little short right field porch they had there in Dodger Stadium. I remember Gil
This
McDougall hitting
field in this case, right?
a
Pivot.
ground ball
Yeah.
to, I think it was to Pee Wee, who threw him out of first base, ending the game. I remember being very sad about it. But then the next year, the Yankees beat him again. It changed. By the time I got to LA, I was going through all these changes about the Yankees and Steinbrenner and the towns I was in. By the time I came to LA, I was all set to become a Dodger fan, number one. I was just set. Got everything fell into place. If I had ended up in my career in San Francisco, even, or in Cincinnati, or Chicago, or Houston, I would not have become a fan of those teams. Only the Dodgers were possible for me.
Okay. So who was your favorite player? You had to have one that
Well,
stood out over everybody.
Mickey,
Okay.
Mickey, he was every kid's favorite player. And I would go, I mean, it's so steeped in growing up. This World Series is so much about my childhood.
It
Uh,
is. Me too.
I would go with the ball game with my dad and I talk about how great Mickey was. And I just met Joe DiMaggio had just finished his career and he talked about going and seeing Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig play. So it was all a continuity for me at that point.
Right. Well, as you know, reading my book, my dad worked at Yankee Stadium when the Babe and Gehrig played in 1931, when a 13-year-old was allowed to work in those days.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, and sell peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks, and he would stop. And you talk about touching greatness. He would stop selling when the Babe was in the on deck circle because everything was different. Nobody wanted to buy anything. They just wanted to stare at Ruth.
Well, imagine Ruth was by far the biggest sports star and maybe celebrity in America,
Yes.
which doesn't exist now. We may, with Shohei Ohtani, have a bit of that. I think I mentioned Mickey Mantle. He may be the last baseball player who was the most famous athlete in the country. After that, it was football, NBA, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite pictures here. Um, I took this picture at the 50th anniversary reunion of the Dodgers winning it in 55. So this would be what, 2005, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's Koufax and Erskine. And you could barely see off to the right Don Newcomb staring at a picture of a mural of the Dodgers winning the 55 title. And I was standing right behind them.
Wow.
And that means a lot to me. And Carl Erskine, I don't know if you ever had the chance to hear my favorite podcast I've ever done with Erskine and Vinny. If you've caught that, it is just
Just that.
spectacular.
Oisk, oisk.
Yeah, exactly. And he said to me, "Can you get Vin on to talk about stories that only he could tell?" And I said, "It's not that easy, Carl, but I'll try." And Vinny came on, and he took about 20 minutes at the start of over an hour podcast, and they were amazing together.
How great is that? How
Yeah, it's
great is
very,
that?
very special.
All right, so we got a World Series going on here now.
Yeah, and here's the guy when he was introduced yesterday. You see, he's got a little shoulder harness on during the introductions, and it turns out we didn't know until after the game that he was wearing that under his jersey during the game. You could see him wince a few times. What were your thoughts on him? Is it just better to have him in the lineup no matter what happens?
I don't know. They have an investment in the future in him.
Yep.
He's 30 years old. He could play to, 38, 39, maybe 40. It's a decision. Like, for instance, would I play him tonight? I wouldn't play him tonight.
I totally agree.
I'm up 3-0. I can spare a few games. I don't want to risk anything with him. It would be different if this were the seventh game, if this was win or go home. I wouldn't play him tonight. They do okay without him. They put Muncy over at first base,
Yep.
And put Kike at third. And with Freddie, would Freddie hit his sixth in a row, 6 games in a row?
Isn't that amazing? All-time record it would be.
All-time record.
Yep.
I would sit him tonight. I really would.
Okay, so what do you think of his slide? I actually texted this to Dave Roberts, whose mentor was Maury Wills, and I said, look at that arm. Look at the amount of pressure putting on that arm. And at his size, he's not Maury or Roberts. He's a big damn dude. And that's what happened to his shoulders. Another angle on it. Check this out. All right. So your thoughts on you being the stolen base guru that you are. What do you think about what I had to say? And here's Maury doing the same thing. He told me that back arm is a guide and a balance arm. You don't put anything.
Yes.
Right?
And the people who know how to slide
exactly
know exactly how to do it with the least amount of pressure.
Yep.
Use it more as a guide.
Yep.
Mention. I loved that Shohei stole 59 bases. All right. I loved it. I never wanted him to steal again. I thought every time he went, he was at the risk of his career.
Right.
I remember that the downturn for Mike Trout, the greatest player of his generation, came from sliding into third base. That was the beginning of his woes. I'm thinking, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Don't steal. You know, you steal one base and you can lose a year.
Leave that to the speedsters and not to the superstars.
Yes, and even if he's let's say he's the best base stealer in baseball, it's still not, if you look, pardon me for the word analytics of it, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Exactly. So here's Freddie Freeman celebrating in the dugout after his 5th straight game with a home run in the World Series. What were your thoughts? You know, they showed a chart. Every single one of those 5 home runs, the pitches were inside and in the strike zone. It's like right where he loves them, and he crushed them all.
Yep. I talked to the pitching coach.
Okay. Yeah. You think avoid that pitch?
That'd be my first, I was a Freddie fan when he was with Atlanta for a couple of reasons. First of all, as a baseball player, he's baseball, But even though he was on this Atlanta team, I would see his friendship toward players who could get to first base. He'd give him a hug even after having a hit. He was like the maitre d' of the field.
That's a good way of putting it.
But I also remember Oral Hershiser seeing that and saying, if he did that when I was pitching and a guy get a hit off of me and got to first base and he gave him a hug, that wouldn't go down well with me. Different time, different baseball, right?
Yeah. Now, Freddie's a different kind of guy. He's just a real, I met him for the first time. I never interviewed him when he was with Atlanta. I met him last year. It was pregame. He was just hanging around. I think it was in the playoffs, and he was sitting right there at the front of the dugout. And I just want to introduce myself. I said, hey, Freddie, I've been covering your team before your dad was born. I always goof around like that. And he was so nice. It was like we were old friends. It was unbelievable.
Are you shocked at how big he is?
He is huge. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But that ball doesn't fly off his bat by accident.
He projects when he's interviewed. He projects like he's 5'11". He's what, 6'5"?
Yeah, I think he's 6'4"-ish.
6'4", something like that.
Right.
Something like that, yeah.
And there's Freddie right there. I mean, you talk about, and George Springer, of all the guys, that's not the name I would have picked.
No, it's not the name you would pick. So I was there when the Dodgers won their first World Series against the Yankees in '55. Little Stevie was very upset about it.
Yeah.
And I was there to what was the most famous moment until maybe now. I was there, kind of there, sort of there for Gibson's home run.
Okay, I wasn't. I heard that a little bit of your story. So you left early. Is that correct?
I left,
beat the crowd.
We left early. We were going to I'm not a party guy, so people are very surprised. We were going to a party at a group of friends we had. We used to hang out with this fun group with Tom Poston and Conway and those people, and they were having a little get together. So we're going to go there, and I was already discouraged by the game. I was discouraged, and Eckersley's coming in. It's lights out.
It's over.
Yeah, turn out the lights. The party's over.
Right.
Eckersley is in. So I get in my car and we're leaving. You know that shot of all the headlights going on?
You're one of them.
No, I'm not. I was.
Oh, you were long gone.
I was on the transition from the 110 to the 101, and being depressed about how it was going. I wasn't even listening to Vinny. I was listening to Jack Buck on CBS. I couldn't even handle listening to Vinny. And Jack Buck did I can't believe what I just saw. It was a great moment. We get to the party and everybody's excited. Say, wow, how was it? You were there. I said, no, we weren't.
Wow. My foot was on the gas pedal.
We're coming to see you.
Oh, wow. Well, at least you got a great story to tell forever. Right?
Well, my wife made a T-shirt and made me wear this. I was doing AM Los Angeles at this point, and it says the date, the game, and I left early, and I had to wear it for 1 hour on Good Day LA, on AM LA.
Right. Okay, so the Dodgers are going for their 8th title since they moved to LA, and the amazing stat to me is only one time did they win it on the home field.
On the home field. Let me just clarify a little bit.
Yeah.
It'll be their 8th World Series victory, period. Brooklyn and here.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You got to add the one in 55.
Yes.
Right.
There's
your last sweep, folks. 1963. And I was not at this game. I was at game 3 when Drysdale shut out the Yanks 1-0. A chunk of my chapter in my book, Touching Greatness, about that one game and what it meant. And the last out, a long fly ball to right field where Ron Fairley was there. Look at the tickets here. I love this, where the prices are $8 and $12.
Ooh, wow, steep.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can handle that.
Let me ask you a question about that last game. So you had the pitchers, Koufax and Ford. How much better does that get? Did they both pitch 9 innings?
I'm pretty sure Sandy did. I don't remember Whitey. And they both pitched game 1 too. So they pitched game 1 and 4.
It's so different. I was seeing when in 88, Fernando pitched the 3rd game.
Yeah.
4 runs were scored against him, but he stayed in. He pitched, I think, 143 or 149 pitches.
Right.
Can you imagine that now?
No.
A pitcher pitching 140 plus pitchers in a World Series game or any game.
No. As a matter of fact, I think because of analytics, that's hurt the Yankees' chances. We don't know how their starter, Garrett Cole from UCLA, is feeling in this entire postseason.
Yep.
Maybe because if he was 100%, he should be going games 1, 4, and 7 if necessary. And instead, he's not even going today, and the whole damn season's on the line. Makes zero sense to me.
Makes zero sense. He was pitching very well. I'm not necessarily a get off my lawn guy.
No.
I like that sports change. I like that there's a clock there. I like those things. I like some changes. But the drama of a pitching duel in the 8th inning and 9th inning, and these guys are throwing their 120th pitches. I miss that. I really miss
the damn World Series too.
Yeah, I missed that part of the game. I love analytics to this point. And the people who hate analytics, don't throw anything at me. Let me explain. In terms of evaluating players' careers, analytics open up a window that we didn't have before. And we can appreciate now something we didn't understand. A guy hits 300. We say he's that much better than a guy who hits 260. But now we know the guy who hits 260 and his on-base percentage is 411 and his slugging is 501 is much better than the 300.
Yeah, even if he strikes out 70 times more, doesn't matter.
you know what? A strikeout doesn't get you a double play. Okay. So most of the time it doesn't. It did.
Yeah.
It did last night. Um, the analytics help us understand players who were underrated and players who were overrated. I love that part of it. In terms of in-game decisions, I hate it.
Totally agree.
Even the old third time around, you don't want to face him. No, the pitcher's hot. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Okay. I don't like the decisions based on computations. Here's where the eyeball test should be everything, and it's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, the general manager and the front office are now more important than the manager during the games, which
Uh-huh.
has never been the case in the
No.
history of this game.
And you don't know, was this decision made by a manager or was it made by AF or whoever else
Yeah.
is calling shots? Because now you have what used to call the slide rule guys. Now you have the computer guys who went to Yale, understand logarithms, etc., but not necessarily the eyeball test.
Right. Well,
I feel like an old scout chewing tobacco and cursing.
I had one of the greatest conversations ever during a World Series. I'm not going to mention his name, with a manager in the big leagues, and asked him. He got a little upset at a question I asked, which I thought was incredibly fair, about moving the ball around, about bunting when it's necessary. This is the effing World Series. You need a run. You need a run. I don't care about analytics now, baby. It's baseball fundamentals that matters to me. If you can get that one run, it might be the difference. And you're not doing it. And he took me aside and he said, if the damn general manager will get me those players who could bunt, Ted, I would do it. I couldn't believe he said that to me. Is that great?
You certainly weren't talking to Earl Weaver.
No.
Who thought bunting was a curse. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But we're talking fundamentals. And right now, by the way, that F word is the difference to me in this World Series. The Yankees are awful fundamentally in every way, and the Dodgers are almost perfect.
Fundamentals and fielding. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the fundamentals.
Yeah. I have a Tommy story I just thought of.
Please.
Tommy Lasorda. I flew to New York to do something years ago. And on the plane on the way back, I was in coach. It was some kind of junket. So I had a ticket, the game of the ticket. And I'm in coach. And Tommy's there. He's up front. But I meet him in the gallery. And we hung out in the gallery. We were talking. He was being so nice to me, and effusive and whatever, and listened to every question he gave me.
Did you know him a bit before that or no?
A bit, just a bit.
Okay.
But I got the full Tommy. 20 years later, he's on a show with me. He's on Good Day LA. And he said, I'm going to tell you a story. I got to tell you a story now. There was a time, you won't remember this, but you were on a flight with me. I said, I absolutely remember the whole thing in the gallery. Okay. Well, here's the truth behind that story. I was flying back from New York, and they didn't have a first-class seat for me. It was filled. And I said, why can't you give me a first-class seat? And he goes, Phil, well, who's in it? And he went through a list, and I see your name. I said, I know Steve. He won't mind. Move him back to coach.
Oh, no.
And I had a first-class ticket. I got moved back to coach, and 20 years later, I find out it was Tommy.
Yeah, good. Tommy probably did that because he's pissed off that Sandy Koufax stole his job. You know his old story about that. If it's not for me, there is no Sandy Koufax. Mm-hmm. He would have been cut, or they couldn't do it because of the rules in those days, and Lasorda got sent down, and the rest is history.
I have so many Tommy stories, many of which I do not tell.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. I'm sure you do too.
Yes. And you know what? We'll leave the reverence where it belongs. An unbelievable career, but I can tell you some of the players that I knew very well that played for him, they wanted to punch him out at times. That's all I could.
Yeah, and Tommy would say, "Yeah, I motivated them that way."
Yeah, right.
They saw the ball and they thought it was me, and they wanted to hit it right out of the ballpark. Who's your favorite player?
Oh, by far, Don Drysdale. In the 60s. There was something about his sidearm motion and the way I love the way he intimidated batters, and nothing ever bothered him. And that's why I wrote in my book about the night that Bobby Kennedy was killed.
Mhm.
And he mentioned Drysdale's name before he started his speech. And it was, I just happened to be watching, and I yelled something to my mother, like, Don Drysdale. He mentioned Don Drysdale,
And
that kind of thing.
it's like a victory for you, right? When you
Totally, totally. It's like, hey, Bobby, I can't vote. So, but if I could, I'd vote for you just because you mentioned his name.
mentioned
Right.
Dry, now you're talking about something that still sets baseball apart from everything else. Baseball is the most sentimental sport in the world.
By far, because who remembers stats from any other sport besides baseball?
No, Babe Ruth is still the biggest star in baseball, and he played 100 years ago, right? We venerate these things from the past, and there is a generational passing on from generation to generation thing that goes on there. It's, football, people pay some attention to Johnny Unitas, but it's not the same way we pay it to Sandy Koufax. It's just not the same deal at all. That is the allure. That's what keeps me bound to baseball. And
There's the Babe.
there's the Babe right there. Give him a hot dog, give him a drink. I've read this quote from him. I drink too much beer, and sometimes when I feel bad about it, I think of all those hardworking people in the breweries, and I'm helping them have a job. So I'm drinking some more.
My only Babe Ruth story personally is not about Babe because he died before I was born, but the day, which happened to be my father's birthday, even though he was long gone, October 27th, 2000. I always forget the year. Is it 2002 when the Red Sox finally broke the curse of the Babe? I think.
I'm not sure.
It's in there, but either 2 or 3, whatever it was, not important. So it happened to be my dad's birthday, and I'm at KFWB, and it's game 7 with the Red Sox, a chance to break the curse of the Babe. And I'm thinking, how do I want to do something a little bit different today? And I looked it up, and I dialed, I guess it was what, 911 is 411. I forgot. 411 info, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I dialed
411 for information.
Right. So I had information. I said, I'd like to get the name of Julia Ruth Stevens, please, somewhere in Arizona. So at that time, I think it was only a 602 area code. And they said, well, we have someone listed. I said, that's great. They gave me the number. I called it up. A woman who sounded like she was 150 years old answers the phone. And I said, my name is Ted Sobel with KFWB in Los Angeles, and I would love to speak to Miss Stevens. And this woman said, oh, she's right here. So it wasn't her who answered the phone. She said, let me get her for you. And I can hear her saying, oh, it's some radio station guy who wants to talk to you, that kind of thing. And she came on and she goes, yes. And she was incredibly nice. And I said, Ms. Stevens, I said, my dad worked at Yankee Stadium when your dad played, and we need to talk about the curse of the Babe today. And she goes, it would be my pleasure. We spoke for about 10 minutes, and I still have some of it. I don't know where the whole thing is, but I have some of it on tape. And I said to her, and I said, what would your dad be doing tonight? If he was in the room with you watching the TV, would he be rooting for the Red Sox, and would he be eating hot dogs? It's exactly what I said. And she says, oh, he stopped eating hot dogs a long time ago. It gave him gas. Now, who knows about Babe Ruth better than his daughter?
Well, there was also the line about him that somebody gave him asparagus. He didn't like to eat it because it made his pee smell.
I hadn't heard that one. Anyway, she said he'd be right here and rooting for the Red Sox. He loved playing there. And that's what she told. So anyway, it was the next best thing to talking to Babe Ruth. And that night they broke the curse of the Babe. I just love that story.
Wow. The game last night was up against Monday Night Football. I don't know if people are watching this, but that would be the third game last night.
I tried to watch both.
And I was curious to see what the ratings are, because what's happened is Baseball cannot compete with football at all on television. At all. And, my joke was, give me a seventh game of the World Series down to the ninth inning.
Yeah.
The Thursday night football game on Amazon with two sub 500 teams probably would get more viewers. I don't think that's true. I think it actually had a bigger audience than Monday Night Football last night. I hope so.
If not, it's pitiful.
If not,
especially the matchup. If the New York Football awful Giants are playing, it should be 1/50th of the.
When they played in 1981, last time they played 43 years ago, the seventh game had 41 million viewers. Everybody's excited because this World Series is averaging about 14 million a night. 14 million. There were 41 million viewers to that seventh game in a country whose population was probably 70 million less than it is now.
Wow. Yeah, it's just not the same. It's never going to be the same because I think kids. I've talked to families, friends of mine, their kids about what they think of baseball. I don't care how fast they try to make it now. It's too slow. If you don't play the game, you can't be passionate about it. That's the way I feel.
Probably, and also something else that football did. Every local game is national. In other words, if Cincinnati is playing Green Bay, people in Rochester, New York want to see that game.
Right.
It has nothing. It's not regional. Baseball is regional. You only follow your team. And if Cincinnati is playing in Milwaukee, you're probably not going to watch in baseball.
Right. No, not at all. Not at all. Thoughts on the game tonight? Can they come alive? I mentioned to you off the air. I guess you call it off the air since we're not really on the air here. I use the term that Aaron Judge is 80-1 today to be the MVP, and he's going to have to hit about 5 more home runs, and the Yankees are going to have to win 4 straight for that to happen. But boy, if he gets hot, that's a hell of a number for that guy.
That would be the story of stories for World Series. If Aaron hits a home run in his first at bat, maybe we have a World Series. He's having what we said historically the worst one ever, the worst World Series ever. The World Series. The World Series is now. It started in 1904, 1903. So this is 121 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And an interesting sidebar to that was it was the American League versus the National League. But the National League thought of the American League as a minor league. It only named itself as a major league like a year before. So they played the World Series and they were very embarrassed because the Boston Americans won. The Boston Americans, known to us as the Boston Red Sox. The next year, there was no World Series because they didn't know if they want to pay the players extra. The National League didn't want to give the American League parity in terms of who makes the money because you're the little brother. But they were so humiliated by not having a World Series. By 1905, we then had a World Series, which was at one point 9 games long.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
No. Well, if they do that now, it would be probably snowing.
It would be Happy New Year.
Exactly. Here's the stat for our Yankees fans to think about tonight and if they extend the series. 24 World Series. There's been a team up 3 games to none, and all 24 won.
That's the one. Of course, people quickly say, yeah, but remember when the Yankees were up 3-0 to the Red Sox for the American League Championship?
Know, not the World Series.
And this little scampy guy named Dave Roberts stole second for the Red Sox. And that was the beginning of the most historic turnaround in baseball. Yep. They brought that up to Dave. They brought it up to him. And he said, don't talk about that one. We're not talking about that one.
Exactly.
If you think about it, the Yankees-Dodgers played in 1941. The Yankees won. 1947, Floyd Bevins almost pitched a no-hitter. Didn't. Yankees won. 1949, Yankees won. First game, Don Newcomb pitching 9 innings, shutout, gives up a home run to Tommy Henrich. Yankees win. I actually talked to Newcomb about that piece of history. He said, if I hadn't given up that home run, we'd still be playing.
I love it.
So that was 49. They played 52, 53. Yankees won. Yankees won. 55, finally the Dodgers won. 56, Yankees won. And then the Dodgers moved out here. And I think it's been a split since they came out here.
Right.
So much history here.
So much history, but when you think it's been 43 years, I have a hard time using the word rivalry every 43 years. It's an East-West Coast type of thing, but it's the teams, they don't give a damn.
The players don't. They're not, they're told about it. The best line I ever heard about that, the Yankees were in the World Series and they weren't doing well, and they were doing well. And Derek Jeter said, "The ghosts come alive here." I thought, what a great line.
Yeah, well, that's what they used to say at Boston Garden. The leprechaun they used instead of the ghost.
Yeah, but the ghosts were players, at least.
No, I get it. But it was something about just the mystique of the place. But you know what? That was old Yankee Stadium more than the new Yankee Stadium, too.
It was old Boston Garden compared to
Exactly. It's a whole different ball game there. How many did you go to several games a year in the old days to Yankee Stadium in the old days when you were a kid?
Sure, my dad would take me. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. We would go, relatively often. It was the other side of the Bronx, But I remember my dad would say, he would tell me parking was terrible, and he'd say to the guy, "Listen, we're leaving early. We're leaving early." So we get, and I said, "No, we're not." He explained to me each time, I say this so that we can get a parking space so that we can get out of here.
Right. No, I had to deal with my dad the same thing. Mine was Dodger Stadium. But did you ever get a chance to meet Mickey or interview him?
I got to interview and meet Mickey a few times. The very first time, though, was funny. I was on television in Houston. There was a golf tournament for Darrell Royal, at that point, the coach of, or the former coach at University of Texas, a venerated figure. And he had a charity golf tournament. I was down there, and I had a crew with me, a camera guy with me. And the woman who was the publicist for all of this was going to set up a thing because she knew what Mickey meant to me. And she said, "I'm going to set it up. You're going to meet Mickey. It's going to be great." And I had my camera guy. I said, "Set it up because I want this one on camera." And Mickey is on the 18th hole, and he's holding out. And she said, "Now," and she said, "Mickey, this is the guy I told you about." And Mickey looked up and said, "Hi," and left.
What?
and left. I realized later he was feeling no pain at that point. Mickey was drinking a lot. Then I got to interview him a couple of times later on, and they were great interviews. He was a very funny interview, very self-deprecating. He said something to me, which he said many, many a time. He didn't have the respect for what he was doing. He didn't realize until later on what it meant to so many other people, and that it still upset him that he was in lousy shape and he allowed his lifetime batting average to fall below 300.
Yeah,
that depressed him. He was a terrific storyteller, by the way.
You know what? I told you I had Tony Kubek, his teammate, on yesterday.
Yeah.
Tony is 89 years old, and he said the exact same thing. He goes, "Mickey was a great storyteller. Go on YouTube and you can watch him on different shows. He was spectacular."
He really was. And he once told me the story. It's a famous story, but he told me the story anyway. I knew the story. When you're interviewing, you know the story in advance to get the story.
Right.
And I didn't know if he would tell it all, and he told it all. And that was, he was out, he was partying, totally out of it. He had been on the, what they then called disabled list, and he thought he was still on it, so he didn't care. And he drank. And he gets in the dugout the next day, and it's the seventh inning. And Ralph Houck says to him, "Mickey, get a bat." He said, "Skipper, I can't. I'm on the disabled list." He said, "No, you're not. It ended this morning." He said, "Skipper, I'm not. I can't sit. Just get out there."
I'm surprised he was in uniform.
And he said, "I got out there, and I'm just like looking out at the mound. I see the pitch, and I hit a 420-foot home run.
Unreal. That is great. I wonder if that's anywhere on video.
But he's told that story.
No, I mean the actual home run.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking baseball goes back so far. All the other sports are relatively new.
Yep.
You know, the NBA only came along in 1949. By that time, baseball has been around forever.
Yep.
And the NBA itself, I'm getting off the track. It's like I'm rambling. But
Ramble. Yeah, don't forget his ramble.
The NBA came about because a bunch of owners of arenas in New York, Chicago, and Boston, and hockey teams, and their arenas sat empty. It wasn't like rock and roll shows came in because they didn't exist then.
Right.
And they thought, what can we do? Let's create a basketball league. And they did in 1946. And there were like 10 teams, and then there were 6 or whatever. And then they had these, you know, the New York Knicks came about, et cetera. And then there was a smaller league called the American Basketball League.
Yes,
the NBL.
Yes.
And they played in small towns in the Midwest, the Fort Wayne Pistons or the Rochester Royals and whatever. And so they put these 2 leagues together in 49, and that was the NBA. And it was never a major sport until, you know, probably 10, 15 years later.
Well, college was major in New, because my dad, growing up in New York, it was like we got to go see NYU or somebody out at the Garden, right?
College sold out the Garden.
Right.
NBA basketball didn't. And then the scandals came along in New York with those teams you're talking about.
Yeah.
City College, LIU, I think NYU was involved. And that ended college basketball as a major deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we wrap things up, I know you got a story about Fernando. We just lost him recently, and a personal story that I want you to share with everybody.
Okay. So Fernando comes along, and there's Fernando mania. It's incredible. And then maybe it's the next year or the year after, I can't remember. Right. I was doing show 2 on the town. And so we're going to shoot. I was going to go to spring training. I went down there, and I'm on the field over at Holman Field, right? Holman Field.
Holman Stadium, yeah.
Yeah. And I see Fernando. And I walked over to him, and I did my best Spanish. He looked like he had lost a lot of weight. And I said to him something about Fernando, muy guapo. No, that's handsome. Me,
Flaco.
Mi flaco. And he said to me, yes, I've lost a lot of weight. I said, wow, well, you look good. You look in shape. Thank you very much. And we just did a little nothing chit chat. And then he left. And then all these people came running over to me. All these reporters came over to me. He said, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say? What did he say? And I said, he didn't say anything. We just, you know. He said, no. He spoke to you in English? I said, yeah. He's never spoken to us in English, ever. It's always through an interpreter. What did you say? What was the magic? I said, I just said what I said. Later, I was talking to another reporter who asked through translation, how come you spoke to Steve Edwards in English and you won't speak to us in English? And he said, oh, Steve is the guy I watch on television every night. I'm learning English watching his show every night. So he didn't think of me as one of those people.
Yeah. How pumped up were you to hear that from him, though? That's got to be phenomenal.
I'm more pumped up now than I was then. I was more blasé about it then. It had a lot when I heard he died. It meant a lot to me at that moment. It really did.
Of course. I used to have dinner with Fernando dozens of times up in the press box, right? And he was so much fun. And I used to say, how come you didn't speak English to me when you were playing, damn it? He did towards the end. He did a lot. But at the beginning.
How much English does Shohei understand?
Oh, he understands, I think, almost everything now.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised at what a easygoing, funny guy he is with his teammates?
I don't know if I'm surprised. I have never dealt with him at all. When he was with the Angels, I didn't cover them much. Uh, and and he is like one of the most overly protected players,
Hmm.
especially in Anaheim. I hear it's different with the Dodgers, but in Anaheim, they had a guy around him. Basically, it was like a moat with alligators. You couldn't get to him at all,
Right.
and there was no chance. So, but I know, and he was not well liked, not Otani, but the guy with him.
Was,
And that wasn't his interpreter either. This
was,
is like
wasn't the,
his manager or something. I don't
uh,
know. He's well known in the circles, but I never dealt with him.
I,
So, but I love his attitude.
I had the same reaction you did. Of course, when you're with Anaheim, you're leaving the mainstream. Don't get mad at me, Orange County. Mike Trout can walk into any 7-Eleven anywhere and no one will know who he is.
Exactly.
I mean, in LA, he can walk into a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, you could thank Artie Marino for that. He's one of the
Okay.
worst owners in all of sports.
So my take on Shohei was that he was distant and that he was culturally separated, and that there was this aura around him of semi-divinity that you didn't mess with. So I'm so pleased seeing he's not just a regular. I see how the guys relate to him and how he relates to them. And so because of that prior image, it's a very warm thing to see.
Yeah, I just saw a new one. It was either last night or 2 nights ago. Did you see it with Teoscar Hernandez, where Teoscar is doing an interview, and Shohei comes over his shoulder and he says something like "gracias," because he was talking. Might have been doing an interview in Spanish, and Shohei starts doing Spanish, and then he says something like "fantástico," and 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 uh, and Shohei goes "fantástico." What does that mean? And he was speaking English and Spanish with Teoscar. It was great, and you could see they were just goofing off.
Oh,
Really refreshing as hell.
They became friends right away because there was a history. I didn't understand that at first because they were both in the American League.
Okay.
Shohei pitched to him and actually once hit him and almost knocked him out of the game. so they had that history to begin with when he got here. Teoscar lights it up. We all want him to come back. You think the Dodgers will re-sign him?
I think if they're smart, they will, because he loves it here, and
Well,
I think he'll settle for a reasonable amount to stay here. Not a discount, but a reasonable amount. That's my guess.
Oh, come on.
No, no, I don't think it's a discount. I just think it'll be probably close to what he's going to get elsewhere. But look, I don't know how these guys fit these contracts. I mean, how much more could you sign? They're saying there's a rumor that they're interested in Soto. What is he going to own, like 20% of the team? Are you kidding me?
I hear the Soto thing. So they're going to give Soto.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
What are they going to do?
I don't believe it. I think what they're going to try and do is re-sign Teoscar, and then Tommy Edman, have him as the shortstop next year at a very low price, because he's not a superstar, never will be. He's hot and good for him. He's earning a job, but he's a fantastic defensive player. I know one guy who used to play with him in St. Louis says he is the best second baseman he's ever seen.
Wow. And
now,
I heard
he's playing shortstop, of course.
For him for 3 years.
Yeah.
I'd hardly ever heard of the guy, when he came to the team and he was injured.
Yeah.
He was still injured. He didn't get to play for a long time. He's been the superstar now. He won't be a superstar day in and day out. I'm with you. What do they do? Mickey Rojas retires or backup or what?
He's a utility guy to me anyway. It's not important.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't hit enough to me to like, I got to have him in the lineup. He does sometimes. He's streaky, though.
Yeah.
And, in these days, I mean, I still got the old mentality. You don't have to be a hitter to be a shortstop, but that's old news. That's 220.
It's old. People who do not belong in the Hall of Fame. Phil Rizzuto does not belong in the Hall of Fame. If he didn't play for the Yankees, he would not be in the Hall of Fame. If you look at their analytics, they're terrible on him.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Well, I had this discussion not about Rizzuto, but about Mazeroski with Kubek yesterday.
What did Tony say?
He didn't commit to saying that he didn't belong. It was more about Maury Wills does belong in the Hall of Fame, because Maury changed the game. And I don't care what his stats say. He was in the minor leagues only because Pee Wee Reese had his job and he
Mhm.
was not going to play at the Dodgers. So it wasn't like he didn't earn it.
All right, let's have this discussion. You want to have
Okay.
this?
Yeah, sure.
Because I get a little crazy about the Hall of Fame. The other Halls of Fame in sports, they're important, but it's not the same as Baseball Hall of Fame.
Not even close.
Okay. Mazeroski doesn't remotely belong in the Hall of Fame. His home run belongs in the Hall of Fame.
His glove belongs in the Hall of Fame. That's it.
The what?
His glove and that one
But-
home run bat.
Yes, but his glove would not get him into the Hall of Fame.
No, of course not.
He was a great second baseman.
Yep.
But without that home run, 1960 World
No
Series,
chance.
you see Yogi Berra watching the ball go over the fence to the University of Pittsburgh campus out there.
Yeah, by the way, real quick, I didn't remember this talking to Tony yesterday. He reminded me that it was the ground ball that hit him in the neck in the previous inning of that game 7. I forgot the sequence of that. So I said, do you get like thank you cards from Maz? Because without that, it would have been a double play ball. He never would have come up. You guys would have won the series, and he would be just another guy working at 7-Eleven.
Well, there's the thing about baseball, because we can get worked up now. This is 63 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, 64 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's talking about that, in football?
No.
Mazeroski does not belong in the Hall of Fame.
No.
Harold Baines does not belong in the Hall of Fame.
No.
And once you and he was a wonderful player and a wonderful human being.
Yeah, this is not a put down.
No. Once you put people in who don't belong, then other people should get in because they say, look who's in. I'm a cheap person. I believe in the very elite Hall of Fame. I believe in the small hall, not the big hall. It should be the golden play, the best players of their time, the people who should be in the Hall of Fame. If Scott Rowland goes in the Hall of Fame, excellent player. Do you know that Ron Say is only a step or two away from Scott Rowland?
Oh, sure.
So why not get Ron Say into the Hall of Fame?
And Garvey is a bubble guy. Either way, I have no problem. If he doesn't get in, I have no problem. If he gets in, that's fine too.
I used to say on the air, we should start a thing to get Garvey in. But now that I understand analytics, he doesn't belong. Ron Say belongs more than he belongs.
But to me, Steve, the word fame means something. It's like MVP, okay? When a guy gets an MVP award, is he really the most valuable, or are you saying he's the best? And there's a difference. Then don't use the word valuable.
It's whatever you want it to be when you vote.
No, I know. Right. But I think fame means something because you created your fame by what you did, not just your stats and how important you were to your team. For example, if it wasn't for Maury Wills, the Dodgers would never won those early World Series in the 60s. He had to get on base.
All right, I'll hear that. But when I look at Garvey, and I don't want to pick on Garvey right now because he's trying to and win, but Garvey's war, and maybe you'll throw up when I say war.
Yeah, I don't follow war. I don't even follow the one in Afghanistan.
Very good. I love war. I follow it. I love war.
Okay.
It's very imperfect, but it takes into consideration pretty much everything.
Okay.
Do you go from first to third? Okay. Fielding, how much you cover the field, hitting doubles, on base percentage. We never used to respect on base percentage. Now we respect it almost too much, but it's
more than the average, which bothers me a little bit.
Because you're emotionally tied to the batting average.
But the batting average still tells you what the guy does to get on base too. Because on base percent, because you're including walks and stuff, right?
All right, I'm going to cut. Let me cut through. I'm going to give you a choice.
All right.
I'm going to give you a player who hits 300 and his on base percentage is 330. I'm going to give you a player who hits 270 and his on base percentage is 390.
Okay, I'll take the 390.
He's now making at least 60 outs, fewer in the course of the season than your better hitter, right? He's on base, extending innings at least 60 times more than your better hitter. Who are you going to take?
I want the guy who doesn't strike out 175 times a year. I don't care what the analytics say.
Well, I don't mind if he strikes out 175 and hits 40 home runs and 38 doubles.
Yeah.
I'll take him. I think what happens is we're emotionally tied to certain numbers.
I know.
By
the way, how about the number that doesn't come up enough, which I think should be, I don't know what they call it, but runners left on base.
Well, there are what they call high leverage batting averages.
Right. But it's not a highly used stat, which I think is extremely important.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of arguments about RBIs. RBIs get disrespected, and then you hear old timers saying.
By the way, thanks for calling it RBIs and not RBI.
On that, I will not give up on that. I will
never.
RBI. That change came about 15, 20 years ago. It's grammatically correct.
You know who I think it's grammatically incorrect. By the way, because. Well, I don't want to get into that, but I think it was, what was his name? Was it Edwin Newman?
Yeah.
Who used to do the show Speaking something?
Yes, and he wrote books. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he was one of the first guys to say that was grammatically incorrect.
Well, it's runs batted in.
I know, but it's runs means it's plural. When you shorten it, it's got to be plural. So it's RBIs.
You're making that argument because that's what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I want. I'm with you. I'm not giving up on it. Just not giving. I'm old school when it comes to that. But the thing about RBIs is you can have Bobby Bonilla suffered this. Bobby Bonilla, when he went to the New York Mets, he was a good RBI guy. It was a 100 RBI guy. And he comes to the Mets as he's a 78 RBI guy. And they said, what a disappointment. He stinks. But if you looked at the times when he was at bat and runners on base, he was just as good, had the same batting average with runners in scoring position. But nobody looked at that. Yeah. The record in history for RBIs is Hack Wilson. 184 RBIs, 192 or whatever, 194, whatever it is.
I can't remember what it was.
Absurd amount in a 156 game season. But if you looked at it, the guys in front of him all had on-base percentages like 420, 450. So every time he got a hit, they scored.
Right.
That's why you have to look at the RBI in terms of, are there runners on base or not? If there are no runners on base, you're not going to be an RBI guy.
Right. Well, I know one of the other issues I have is like people say, oh, he doesn't hit home runs when they need him. It's like you don't get to choose when you hit a home run. You got to have a home run pitch to hit. And a lot of times, if it's runners in scoring position, if the pitcher is good, he's not going to give you a pitch that you can hit out. So, I mean, that's an arguable thing there.
Good, but you should never penalize the guy for hitting a home run.
Of course. They say, he only hits it with nobody on base. It's like,
never a bad thing.
You can't choose when you hit a home run.
Yeah. Never a bad thing at all. The pitch clock. I told you I'm all in favor of it. What about you?
Yes and no. It's funny. I talked to Al Downing a lot. Okay. And Al hates it. Al hates it. He says, if I'm the pitcher, part of what I do is the tempo of how I want to go up against on the next pitch, this batter.
Right.
And I can't do that anymore. And now I have to establish everything. He goes, I understand the speed and all that. You want to speed up the game. He goes, I don't like it because you can't be the pitcher that you think you are and you can be. That's what he feels really strongly about that.
Can't be the batter. What would Nomar Garcia-Parra have done?
With the hands and the
I get his point. Oh, by the way, here's a memory.
Yeah.
It's a hot night in the summer in New York. No air conditioning. I'm lying in my bed trying to stay cool, listening to the radio, listening to an announcer named Mel Allen, who was the announcer of baseball, period. Yeah. I mean, you had Red Barber and the young and Van, but Mel Allen was the guy. And he starts talking about this new young pitcher who's pitching, named Al Downing.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So 60 or 61 here then.
Yeah. And Al Downing came in, and I remember so clearly.
Really?
And again, I'm a kid sweating in my bed. And Al Downing came up, and I remember the first 6, 7, 8 batters. He either struck out the batter or walked the batter. I'd have to go back specifically because memories can
Of
change.
course.
It seemed like he was striking out batters and walking batters, and he was probably done by the second or third inning with like 7 strikeouts and 11 walks. Now, sure, it can't be that big. I got to go back and check that one out.
Yeah, that's great.
Brought that up to Al, and Al said, "Well, that's because my slider was." He's
Yeah. Oh, he's analytical about everything.
yeah.
He's such a great guy though to talk to. He probably calls me at least 5 times a week, and we
Wow.
just and sometimes we're going to talk baseball. But it was really funny the other day when Freeman hit the grand slam. Al was on the phone with me. People always say, "Where were you at the time?" And he's talking to me, and he's mentioning. He said, "Nasty Nestor, don't bring that guy in. He's not ready to pitch." And I'm not following the Yankees close at all. I didn't know. And he watches a lot of their games, right? Much more than the Dodgers. And he said, Nestor, he goes, nope, this is not good. I don't like this at all. And we're talking and we're bantering back and forth. And finally, I happen to know, it's like, did he just hit that out? That's what I said to him. So I'll never forget where I was. And Al was saying, I can't believe it. I told you this guy, he wasn't ready for this situation.
By the way, kudos to Joe Davis to have the presence of mind to do an homage to Vin Scully when Freddie hits that home run. Yeah. To even think of that. She's gone. How did he even think of that in that moment? I was very impressed.
Some of these guys do practice their ad libs. I have several different examples of that.
But
I don't know
if he ad lib for a moment that is so rare.
Oh, of course. No, I'm not saying he did. I have no idea. And if I ever see Joe again, I don't get credentialed to the Dodgers this is the first year. I went to 1 game this year. I mean, I used to go to 40, 50, 60 games a year. So, and I'm not credentialed for the playoffs for the first time ever.
When I did sports talk.
How many years did you do that?
Probably in total 4 years, 5 years.
ABC, right?
Did it alone. I did it with Eric Tracy when it came back. But I used to, I had my own booth before the game, and I'd have my producer, and I would do my general talk show for 2 hours, and then we segue over to sports talk. And I was in, broadcast heaven doing that.
Yep.
And I'd have, I'd have my own booth right there. And the first game I ever did, I had this moment saying, I can't believe I'm doing this. The players are on the field. It's opening day. I'm doing this broadcast now.
You're in heaven.
I'm, the little Stevie is just thrilled. Little Stevie from the Bronx, throwing it to the players on the field. And then that year, I've been fortunate to win a bunch of awards. You win, if you're around long enough, you win a lot of lifetime stuff. But I did that year get the Newcomers Award from the LA Southern California Sportscasters Association.
Sure.
And I won the Sportscasters Award. And I remember I got up there and Vin was there. And I said, first of all, Vin Scully sitting there. He's the soundtrack of my childhood. For you, him a certain way. I know him when I was 5 years old, right?
I think that's great.
In Brooklyn, okay. But I'm in my, I think, 40s. To be the Newcomer Award is really very gratifying at this point.
That is awesome.
I love that. That was a job that wasn't like a job.
Right. Well, with KFWB, our sports team, it was like 4 or 5 of I think it was 5 of us. We won the best radio anchor team award at the Sportscasters luncheon 10 years in a row. And they had to change the rules. So you can't win it more than 3 or something like that. So it was really fun to have the all-time record, and it can never be broken. Nice. And it doesn't. And it's a nice record, but it's not that big of a deal. But my story is that one time I went up to accept it for the rest of the guys, and I looked down, and there's Vinny in the table right in the middle, and I said, before I say anything, I say, Vin, I've never had a chance to tell you this, but when I went to bed every night, you went to bed with me when I was a little kid, and you were in my earpiece in that transistor radio. When my parents thought I was sleeping, that radio was under the pillow, and I didn't leave until you said good night, everybody, on the post game show. It was fun. That meant so much to me. It wasn't even fun.
67 years.
Yep.
That he
It's
did
crazy.
that. And we've gotten away from that. It used to be most of the baseball towns had announcers who were the part of the community,
right,
that were, if you're in Pittsburgh, it was Bob Prince. If you're in St. Louis, it was Jack Buck. It was Harry, both in St. Louis and in Chicago. Mel Allen, certainly at that point in New York, was the guy. Dave Niehaus up north. I don't. That doesn't quite exist any longer.
No, I don't think it's ever going. First of all, the business is different, but
Mhm.
besides that, when you have guys that like Joe Davis, he does Fox, he does this, he does that, and you almost have at his stage he doesn't have to, but a lot of guys they have to piecemeal this to really get what they want out of their career now, because it's not. You don't just go in the same way. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be with the Dodgers forever, and they'll pay you $4 an hour.
You did play-by-play.
Yeah.
You did hockey play-by-play.
It's about 10 years. Yeah.
Okay. Of all the sports, I think the toughest one to call is hockey.
Well, I have an answer for that. I think it's
say this: your brain-mouth coordination has to be, your eye-brain-mouth coordination has to be tremendous.
But in a way, it's the easiest. The thing about it is, it's the one sport where you don't have time to think of what you're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
You have to react. And Chick Hearn told me this, and he brought me, not about hockey, but he brought me into his office a couple of times and showed me how to do a basketball chart for a broadcast, which was really nice of him back in the, I guess this would have been about early 80s, I would say.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, really nice. And he told me, he says, it's about reaction. And he was a former official too. He says, you got to anticipate. If you can anticipate and then react, and obviously you've got to be glib and all that kind of stuff. But if you could do that, basketball and hockey are the easiest. You got to develop your style. Once you do that, you don't have time to think. You just do it. You're looking here, you're looking, where's the puck and whatever, but you don't have to think like Vinny's got, 30 seconds between pitches. What do I say next?
Well, I think I said this when we were talking on the phone the other day.
Yeah.
Doing hockey and basketball, your job is to describe the action.
Yeah.
In baseball, especially in radio, you are creating a whole narrative. You, as Vince said, you're painting the whole picture.
Yeah.
Because there's so little action. I got a Vince story. It's a good one. It's not a good one. Early on, when I was starting to do tour in the town, I hadn't been in town that long. Vin's wife, Sandy was involved with the retinitis pigmentosa.
Yes, I remember that.
So they wanted to get a piece and some publicity, and somebody came up with the idea that Vin would teach me how to do play-by-play. Okay. I go to Dodger Stadium before the game.
You sure that wasn't you who came up with that idea?
I know. Good call. And I'm sitting up there, and we're in a box, or I can't remember exactly where we were, maybe in the press box. And I see them talking to Vin.
There's his studio, or in the press box.
And I see them talking to Vin, telling Vin, now this is not that long before the game.
Right.
Telling him about this thing, and I can see that he knew nothing about it. And I could also see he wasn't happy with it.
Oh, that happened to me too with Vinny once.
So they drop it on him.
Oh, God.
But it's for Sandy.
Oh, okay. Did they make sure they did tell him that, right?
Yes. So he has to swallow the anger.
Oh, wow.
That he's being intruded upon right now. And he came over, and he sounded, because he didn't know me. In other words, I was just a guy, And And he sat down next to me, and I said, okay, well, he said, well, first of all, it depends. Are you talking about radio or television? Now, of course, I knew all this stuff, but I was acting like, well, no, what's the difference? Well, in baseball, everybody's seeing what you're seeing. So you are adding on to what they're seeing. You're kind of the icing of that cake. But if it's radio, it's a mosaic, it's a painting. And you're filling in every spot for the listener. And as he's telling me this, and he's probably said this a million times, but he gets so caught up in the poetry of it, the anger went away.
Oh, nice.
And
And
now
then you did the piece?
oh yeah, now he's all in. He was all
So
in.
do you still have that?
No, I don't have that.
Oh, God, I would love to see that.
And years later, when I got to know Vin, of course, I would bring up about, you were really pissed, weren't
Did he
you?
remember?
He kind of remembered being annoyed. That's what he remembered.
Well, I'll give you a half-ass version of my own story similar to that. When he was with KFWB in my station, and we set up that I was going to do a one-on-one, and he did not do one-on-ones. He did one with Jeff Witcher once. He did a couple, but not much. And when he said he would do it with me, it was like fantastic, right? So he said, we're going to do this like, I don't know, an hour before the game, an hour and a half, whatever it was, in the press box at that same studio where he did his games for 1,000 years, right here. And this is not when we took the picture. This is a separate time. So I go in there, and he was not aware of how long this was going to be. Okay. He assumed I was going to go in and do like a several minute thing, one-on-one, and get the hell out of here and let him be himself and do his pregame prep and whatever he does. Right. Well, we're going like 25 minutes, and he starts to look at me like, is this thing ever going to end? You know, he didn't say it. Remember, this is only audio. It's only into a recorder. So there's no video, and he's looking at me. He didn't do this, but he was looking at me like, you got 12 seconds to wrap this up, buddy.
You picked up the body language.
It wasn't body language. It was like, he might as well just point a gun at my face. That was more than body language. And I'm thinking, damn, I didn't finish. How do I wrap this up in a good, because we were going in sequence of his career through the 60s, what it was like, into the 70s, into the 80s.
When did you realize this is not the right plan?
I realized it when he started to get fidgety. But I didn't know at the beginning, I didn't know what it was for, but then you could see it was becoming like, hey, buddy, this is not good. And I've never said this anywhere, but it's the truth. When it was over, I didn't finish it. He got up and he walked out of his studio.
Wow.
Because he didn't want to say anything that would embarrass any. He didn't want, he was always paranoid about what he said that might come back to haunt him.
Right.
Always.
Very careful. He was always
very careful. And he looked at me and he just turned around and walked out. And I'm sitting there thinking, please don't tell me, am I in a coma? This can't be real.
Wow. How did you lose sleep that night?
I didn't sleep for several nights. Yeah, it was bad. I still have that I have. And it is a great one-on-one with Vin Scully with no ending.
Can you run it here?
Well, of course.
Why don't you do that?
Yeah, I want to. I don't know. I want to finish it somehow. That
you have all the photos that you can run along with it,
right?
So visual element, and then come on at the end and say, "Folks, I'm going to be very honest with you. This ended. It's a better story."
Yeah, no, it's right. And you know what? And I promised myself that I would never talk about this when Vin was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's wrong to talk about it now. I don't think it's wrong.
Fine.
It's just it's my story. It's what really happened.
Fine.
But you know what I'm saying is as far as like respecting him, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, I get that. And Vin had that aura.
Exactly.
He was the most accessible person on earth.
Totally.
All right.
Yep.
He was warm about the neighbors, but you kept the distance from him. By the way, brings up in my head, Charlie Steiner, you know Charlie, right?
Yeah, of course.
You heard the story of what happened with him.
Yep. Yep.
Are you in touch with him at all?
I have texted him a few times and he hasn't responded, so I don't know
Well,
what's going on.
say that I've texted him, and I know Charlie. We're friends. I've
I'm
texted him,
sure you know him better than I do, but I know him to say hello and we've chatted, just to say hi
yeah,
all the time.
and I haven't heard back from him either,
Yeah.
which I
So,
find a
but
lot.
he is not good at texting, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I haven't tried to call because I don't want to get in. If he's going through a tough time, I don't need to speak to him. It's not that important. I'm sure you know him better than I do.
Uh, he would always tell me that before the game, he would have dinner with Vin
Sure.
and Mo.
Yeah, there's a separate room that they
Yeah,
had.
with Rick Monday and the road guy. Who's the Dodger road guy? Who's been there
Uh,
forever. Maybe Billy Laurie, maybe. What's his name?
well, no, Billy Delory was the old traveling secretary.
Yeah, was he still
You talk
around?
about on the air or off the air
No, no,
guy?
no. This is having dinner before the
Oh
game.
yeah. Well, Billy used to be the guy. He was always in that
Yes,
room having
yes.
dinner.
And
Yeah.
Charlie said they would all have dinner, and Vin
Right.
would be Vin. Vin would be Vin at
Yeah,
dinner.
exactly.
He's not protecting the image at that point.
Right. He's holding court too.
And he's holding court, and there's still even there a level of veneration, even within that grouping. Within that
Oh yeah,
group.
no doubt, no doubt. But
My
but you,
my battery's running down. I'd love to continue, but I can't plug
oh,
in.
you're going to be like Vince Scully. You're just going to leave. I could take a hint, folks. That's Steve Edwards. I think he literally did leave. Steve, thanks a lot. Before your battery dies, could you go real quick? Quick story. What's going on with your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? I love that.
I got the star. I don't know how many years ago now. And when I got it, we were doing the National Good Day Live show.
Yep.
And the whole hour was there, and we had the world show up, and Henry Winkler spoke at it, and 25 people. I don't want to start names. Leave
No, I
them out.
get it. Well, I actually have another picture with some of those people. Here they are.
Okay. You see the skinny guy behind Dorothy?
Yeah, that looks like the mayor.
He was the city councilman.
Okay.
And so he made the designation. And there's George Lopez.
Yep.
There's Henry. There's Doris. Everybody loves Raymond.
Okay. That's
and
great.
that's Dorothy Lucy next to me.
And the fake mayor of Hollywood, of course.
And the fake mayor of Hollywood. And there is Jillian. And when I got the star, since it was a national show, and they, went to all the speeches, and I got up to speak, and I said, I know what you're thinking around America. Who the hell is this guy?
I love it.
Why is he getting a star?
That is great. Yeah. Well, you got it. And look, it's there forever. You got to be proud of it, whatever the
I am. I always make fun of things like that. I make fun of them.
They step on you and
except when I get them.
I got you. Could we do another show sometime? I want to talk about the Blacklist because you are so historically knowledgeable about it.
Well, you had an uncle.
Yes.
Deeply involved, one of the more creative, talented people in Hollywood. We'll just tease it at that point, okay?
Here's the tease picture with
All
my
right.
uncle meeting the Queen and Winston Churchill and his Academy Award. That's Carl Foreman, my mother's only brother. We'll talk about that another time. But I love the fact that you know more about it than I do because you were a couple of years older than me, so you lived some of that.
Well, but also historically,
Of course.
I'm fascinated by it. Your uncle was in England where they knew him well because he had to get out of the United States.
Exactly. 25 years he was gone.
Yeah.
And guess what, folks? If you don't vote the right way, and I'm not saying any more than that, the Blacklist could come back, and it really, really could.
Oh, don't
think about it.
Don't be that mean about Kamala.
But seriously, folks,
Steve,
it was awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Ted.
We'll do it again and enjoy the game tonight. Could be the first sweep since my 63 Dodgers.
And by the way, I have mixed emotions about a sweep because I want them to come back and I want a few more games.
Yeah, not a bad thing. And you know what? Who cares if a bullpen game and they lose?
Yeah,
I mean,
and don't play Shohei either. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like last night's shutout. Who cares if it? By the way, did you hear that stat? It would have been the first World Series shutout since '88. I had no idea.
I heard that. Well, for the Dodgers.
Oh, is that what it was? I thought they said
only 7-8 games. It's not far more dramatic.
Oh, okay. I thought they said overall.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I feel better about it.
Yeah,
All right.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, Ted.
Happy sweep day, everybody. Thanks, Steve. Talk soon.
So long.
All right. Take care, boys.
Bye-bye.